cell phones, high-speed internet, and satellite radio. We live in an age when communication is faster and easier than ever before. Millions of messages are sent around the world every second, traveling from person to person at the speed of light. Baby pictures and baseball scores can be shared across continents almost instantaneously. Text messages, voicemail, and high-definition video dominate the world of communication, relentlessly bouncing from satellite to satellite, device to device, and user to user, reaching virtually anyone, anywhere in the world, in the blink of an eye. Today, more than ever, information is king, and communicating this information is fast, easy, and convenient. Technology has connected us in ways we've never known before. Doors to communication have opened that never existed. Communication brings our global village together, building communities, exploring possibilities, and even saving lives. Nowhere can a bigger impact from communication be found than in the world of business. Modern communication techniques have reshaped the global marketplace, shifted entire economies, and created unprecedented opportunities. We've witnessed an explosion of diversity in the marketplace in recent decades, largely due to advancements in communication, bringing new goods and services to consumers around the world. Corporations are now more efficient than ever, and communication plays a major role in performance improvement. While effective communication with the outside world can give any company a competitive edge, no communication is more essential to a company than its own internal corporate communication. A breakdown of internal communication can erode even the strongest company from within, while a strong communication plan can have synergistic effects on the strength of any firm. There are many channels of communication within any corporation. Using these channels effectively is vital to every company's success. Whether the communication channel is electronic, such as email, or good old-fashioned written communication like letters, one thing is for sure: knowing how to use the channel effectively is as important as the message itself. Even in communication channels such as face-to-face conferences or one-on-one meetings, the message is irrelevant if the sender can't communicate it effectively. So why is internal communication so important to a company? What is the worst thing that could happen if communication was to break down? One example that can illustrate the answers to these questions comes from an event that occurred in 1986. Everyone who was alive at that time can surely recall the disaster which affected thousands of people in the Ukraine. A flawed reactor design contributed to the worst nuclear power plant disaster in human history. According to the World Nuclear Association, or WNA, 2 people died on the scene of the accident, and 28 more lost their lives within a few weeks as a result of acute radiation poisoning. Countless cases of thyroid cancer have also been reported in the area since the event. The WNA also reports that large areas of Belarus, Ukraine, Russia, and beyond were contaminated in varying degrees. So what did communication have to do with this event? The reactor design flaw led to the accident, but the severity of the event is directly attributed to improperly trained personnel. Apparently, the personnel on site during initial stages of the event did not know how to react to the unusual conditions, and they were unaware and unprepared to communicate these conditions to the appropriate people. While we may never know for sure, it's fairly likely that many lives could have been spared if the proper communication channels were open and the staff were trained to use these channels effectively. Of course, this event happened nearly 30 years ago in a nation thousands of miles from the U.S., but this striking example illustrates something that affects companies closer to home every day. If we take a look at the scandal that surrounded the Enron Corporation, it's easy to see how the company's questionable standards for internal communication directly contributed to the scandal. The Markkula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University notes that the board of directors for Enron essentially refused to communicate with concerned employees leading up to the scandal because they did not consider their responsibility. They considered themselves representatives of the shareholders only. Had the company's top leaders made it a policy to require reciprocal communication and transparency, one of the most significant business scandals in history could have been avoided. In fact, this scandal, in conjunction with the scandals surrounding other companies such as Tyco and WorldCom, sparked the U.S. Congress to pass the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. Simply put, this legislation was designed to ensure transparency within U.S. corporations and give American employees both a channel and a duty to communicate across corporate levels. There are many pitfalls in business communication that could present challenges to even the most well-meaning managers and employees. Whether we like it or not, we are all creatures of habit to some extent or another, and bad communication habits can easily become ingrained in us over time. For example, allowing voicemails to go unreturned can seem like an exercise in time management. It can be hard to find time to return every call that comes in, and letting one or two voicemails go unanswered can make it easier to ignore the next, starting an unhealthy cycle of poor communication. Another bad habit that many people develop is losing the focus to pay attention while listening to others. It's easy to let your mind wander during a meeting or a long conversation, especially when you think there's a strong chance that you can get the information later from another source, such as a coworker or an email. But what about that one vital piece of information you could miss? The one factual tidbit that could serve to avoid a nuclear disaster or a financial scandal? Most of us don't work in situations in which the information we receive has this much bearing, but we all deal with information every day that could be vital to the company that employs us. It's not difficult to see how important communication is to the success of a company, but it can be challenging to develop and sustain healthy communication channels. People don't always react well to change, and bad habits can be hard to break. Managers have a responsibility to tackle the barriers to effective communication, however, and the hardest part often is getting started. It can be tough to know where to begin, which really depends on the current employee culture within a particular company. Effective communication is often dependent on trust, and trust, in turn, is often cultivated through effective communication. Transparency within the company is essential in fostering internal trust, and while complete transparency is not always feasible, company leaders should strive to be as open as possible to employees, keeping them informed and thus engaged. Employee engagement is impossible without open communication channels within an organization. But how important is this employee engagement in the business world anyway? Consider the results of the Temkin Employee Engagement Study, conducted as part of a corporate benchmarking effort as reported by CMSWire.com. It says companies with strong financial results report employees to be engaged 75% of the time, compared to organizations with weak financial results, which report an employee engagement rate of only 47%. Engaged employees are more than twice as likely to go the extra mile at work. These folks stay late, collaborate with colleagues, and recommend organizational improvements. The survey also reported that 96% of engaged employees responded that they always, or almost always, try the hardest on the job, while only 79% of non-engaged workers responded that way. With results like these, there's little argument that much value can be placed on engaging employees, and this all starts with opening and maintaining communication channels across the company. Modern technology has made it easy for workers and managers around the world to communicate with each other. We simply need to know how to use these advanced tools properly. With focus, practice, and a good measure of common sense, we can employ these tools and take our business performance to new levels. We should always keep in mind, however, that our humanity is our most fundamental communication tool of all, and we should remember that technology does not always convey the empathy needed in some situations. Sometimes a handshake and a smile can have the most impact of all. Thank you.